Hi, good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Minority Report. I'm Ireland David, your host, and again, it's indeed a pleasure to come into your living rooms to have conversations with you, to just share information, to dialogue, present facts, debunk some of those things that we have been seeing and hearing in the public domain over the last couple of months. And this week's episode is going to continue to be as exciting as it is and has been riveting over the last couple of weeks. One of the things that we always have indicated to you, our viewers, and we maintain, is that the Minority Report is going to have a heavy educational impact on many persons. And so we continue to advance the conversations, we continue to advance the narratives that not only seek to educate, but also seek to enlighten many of us here in Tobago with respect to what is in fact happening. A lot of information going around in the public domain. However, not all information can and in fact has been validated. And so when you log on to the Minority Report, what we do, we present the facts, we present the receipts, we present the arguments, but we also equip you, the viewer and the listener, with the relevant information so that you of yourself can in fact make informed choices. This evening, it's always a pleasure coming in, sitting, sharing with you, having conversations with you, your families and so on. And before I actually get into some of our necessary information, I want to say thank you to all of Tobago. It is indeed a pleasure when you go wherever you go and persons just walk up to you and simply say, listen, the information that you guys have been presenting has in fact given me an edge, or has given me the opportunity to truly understand what has been taking place right here in Tobago. So many people have indicated that there are so many things, so many issues, so many situations they were not aware of. And it is because of the information presented right here on this particular platform that they now have the relevant information that can help them in their decision-making process. And again, as I love to say, we are where we are as a program simply because of you, the viewers. And so I want to encourage you all to continue staying there with us, logging in, sharing the link, encouraging your family members to sit and be a part of the conversation, as we all collectively have agreed thus far that we can only be better for it. This evening, if you are viewing us on the platforms, let me give you an idea of where you can find us. You can find us on the Tobago Updates website. You can find us on the Tobago Updates YouTube channel. And yes, Tobago Updates does have a very active YouTube channel, and you must log in from time to time if during the day you're desirous of getting a rerun of any particular episode. You can go to YouTube and pull it up. You can also view us on the Tobago Updates Facebook page. And that's a platform many persons take the opportunity to log into, because it gives the opportunity for you to interact with us on the live chat. And so as we are on the live chat, I want to encourage you to keep your comments respectful. I always repeat that this is a family program. Grandparents, parents, children sit together and they view the program and have discussions out of it. So we must always be mindful of the conversation and the comments that we carry on throughout the program. So I want to ask you to sit back. If you haven't done it yet, call a friend, call a relative, share the live link, send a WhatsApp, call your co-worker and encourage them. Call your neighbor, encourage them to log on to Tobago Updates. And if you are by chance a subscriber of Amplia Network, all you have to do is turn your TV to channel 102 on the Amplia Network, and you can also be an active participant of the program. You may not be able to comment on the television. But if you have a comment that you really want to get to us, or you have some information that you consider too important to wait, you can send that via WhatsApp on 284-6597. That's 284-6597. Feel free to message. Feel free to send your photos, your information. If you have something taking place within your community even that is negatively impacting you, send us a message. If you have something that is positively impacting you, send us a message. And we'll be more than willing to ventilate right here on the Minority Report as we get the information out to as many persons throughout Tobago as is humanly and digitally possible. So sit back. We're going to take a very short break, pay some bills early on, and when we get back, we're going to get right into this evening's conversation. And I know you guessed it, we continue to speak on autonomy, Tobago's push for autonomy, a very, very hot topic, but we're going to get right into it. Stay locked on, and we'll be right back.
Tobago, your voice matters. The Police Complaints Authority invites the public to its community outreach session. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to attend and give us feedback. Join us Thursday, 14th November at the Canaan Bonaccord Multipurpose Facility from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Come share your thoughts, raise your concerns, and learn about how the PCA serves to ensure accountability within our police service. Your input makes a difference. Let's work together for a safer, stronger community. The Police Complaints Authority. Independence, integrity, and transparency in action.
Get ready for Tobago Stockwest Next Level 2024. Join us for an unforgettable night of talent and excitement as Tobago Stockwest, in collaboration with Tobago Updates, presents the first semi-final on Thursday, November 14th, 2024, and the second semi-final on November 28th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Shore Park Complex. Celebrate the incredible talent from across Tobago's communities and witness a showcase like no other. Admission is just $50. Don't miss your chance to support the stars of tomorrow. See you there.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tobago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tobago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO, and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tobago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tobago's at your service.
Are you thinking about spending Christmas in Tobago? Well, call us at Thorns Place. We are located at the hills of Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port, with rooms starting at 200 TT. Call us now at 745-7306 or 682-8676. Follow us on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Message us on WhatsApp at Thorns Place. Your Christmas in Tobago will be even more special.
Coconut's Cafe, the buffet restaurant that specializes in all your tasty local dishes for breakfast and for lunch. Breakfast includes coconut bake and sada roti served with chokers, bull joil, and sausages in tomato sauce. Not forgetting beef and cheese pies, shepherd's pie, macaroni pie, and rice in various styles. Meat served in a variety of flavors, garden salads, and pasta salads. All this accompanied by fruit juices, coconut water, your choice of a great combination to appease your taste buds. So call us today to order, as we are here to accommodate your busy schedules or if you are having a cooking day off.
Are you an architect or draftsman looking to upgrade your skills, or a beginner eager to master essential tools? ReCAD Labs has the solution. Our Revit Architecture Fundamental Tobago course is designed to boost your skills and confidence. Running from October 6th to November 17th, this course includes a live session on November 17th for hands-on learning. Learn from experts in our virtual classroom and stay ahead in the world of architecture. Visit recadlabs.com to enroll now and follow us on social media for updates.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
Folks, and we are back in studio, and joining me right now, let me take the opportunity to welcome this evening Senator Lawrence Hislop. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Maryland. Good evening, Tobago. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. It is indeed a privilege to be here.
And I mean, you're here, yes, but you've been in the news or in the media, let me say the media,
have I?
For quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. And I mean, I know the conversation has escalated with respect to autonomy, and we're going to be getting in a bit with that later on in the program. But we've also seen quite a lot coming out of the budget debate. We haven't had the opportunity to actually touch on what your contributions may have been coming out of that budget debate area. And now we are into Tobago's push for autonomy. Before we actually get to the autonomy conversation, I just want you to bring us up to date as it pertains to some of the things that you would have piloted in the Senate. Quite a number of presentations, and we had the opportunity to listen to you and as well as Senator Dennis really making a mark down there in the Senate.
No, well, we continue to, well, from my perspective, I continue to speak to the issues as it relates to Tobago and from a national perspective as well. The budget debate was as is customary, one where we articulate very strongly the government's overall view, overall vision for the country, and more so its vision for Tobago, and where Tobago fits into the national agenda. And so one of the things that I drilled down into a lot, and I think we saw some fallout from that. One of the things that I drilled down into was the talk of the marina, or the proposal of the marina coming in to Tobago, and I spoke to the fact that the data is there that marinas can be a significant source of employment, significant source of not just employment, but high quality employment. We're talking about individuals who are to be prepared for ship repair, just the mooring of the vessels. There's also the studies have shown that there's also this spin-off effect for marinas in any jurisdiction. Also, that and one of the things I highlighted, that marinas can a yacht owner can pay up to 10% of the value of his vessel to annual maintenance and upkeep to a marina. And when we broke down the figures, you have yachts varying in value from 600,000 all the way to tens of millions, depending on the size. And you factor in 10% of the value of those vessels, and that's US dollars that yacht owners would usually pay to marinas for the upkeep. And so that is not just a marina is not just a place for holding a vessel, but a marina is a place of significant economic activity, because as I was saying, outside of just the keeping of the vessels and the maintenance of the vessels, most marinas would have hotels and mini marts and restaurants and all of those things within the environment, or even just outside. And so rich yacht owners will dock their vessels at particular marinas, fly into the country, spend a couple of days in the country, get on the yacht, sail for about a week or two, go to another destination, even come back to the place where it's docked, and then fly out again. And so you have to speak to the stocking of vessels with groceries and all those kinds of things. So I kind of prosecuted that to some extent in the budget debate, that showed the benefit of that kind of thing coming into Tobago. And so we're looking for. So it was very interesting budget debate, because a lot of persons felt that the minister would have provided an election budget, and then you ask the question, what is an election budget? But what we had presented in the budget was a very sober-minded level financial outlook for Trinidad and Tobago. And so the conversation will continue. We spoke about, I think we spoke about it here, about the quantum for Tobago and whether it is sufficient and so on. And I re-emphasize the point that it is not necessarily about how much you get, but about what you do with what you get. And it's about management of what you get. And I think this administration has clearly shown over its tenure that management is a problem with regards to the resources that they receive. Yeah.
Thank you very much joining us as well on the live link. We have the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, fresh from a day ahead, I think it is, of us. Welcome, Minority Leader, back home, first of all, and back to the Minority Report. How are you?
Pleasant good night, Marilyn. Good night to the Senator. His luck. Good night to all our viewers logged on and listening. I am quite exhausted, to be quite honest, so let me apologize for not being able to come in. I was dragged onto public business this morning by the Senator. So I had literally no rest. I was thrown right into the firing line this morning, and we continue to do the work. We continue to have the conversations, very important conversations in the Tobago space. Senator, I just wanted to compliment you. Looking like 10 years younger, man.
I'm looking 10 years younger, but I don't know if the producer could help me with the volume. You're very soft on my end. I don't know if it's you, but you're very low on my end. You say that
Are you hearing me better now?
Very low, very low.
For this?
Yeah, you say I look 10 years younger.
Yes, you look 10 years younger. I don't know if it's because I haven't seen you for 10 days.
But it could be that, my brother. It could be that. I guess compliments go to my Baba, man. He gave me a freshen up this. Yeah, but good to have you back. I know You went on a very long journey, and a journey that I know was very meaningful and has added value to you as a minority leader and also as an individual. So welcome back. I know you represented Tobago well.
Definitely appreciate, and yes, of course, as you would be familiar with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, work they do. And that conference is one of their signature events, one of the major events on the calendar.
Yeah.
And, it was really, as I told people, it was an enlightening experience, a great learning and networking experience. And ultimately, there was a lot of important discussions that were had there, that are critical even to our current issues. We are faced with this issue of AI and synthetic media and this thing called fake news. How do you now treat with, what is real and what is fiction?
Yeah.
And also that was one of the topics that really took front and center concerning legislators. How can you legislate? How can you use it for the good that it is? And how can you protect the parliament and parliamentarians and the people in general from some of its dangers? So it was really an interesting, a lot of interesting discourse, resolutions, and recommendations.
Yep. It's in fact good to hear its constant capacity building and development, and coming in from a session like that, minority leader, into the heat of the conversation about Tobago's autonomy and the push for Tobago's autonomy. We're seeing the People's National Movement as a party hosting tongue meetings now where the party is actually educating Tobagonians about the bills that have been laid in the parliament, both bills, and taking time to show the benefits, taking time to outline the historic value in the bills, where we came from with these bills, and the journey that it took for it to get here, and then what is there for all of Tobago to benefit in terms of how do these bills advance Tobago. Interestingly, and it's ironical that you have to come right into the fight with this. We now see the Chief Secretary taking one of his usual stance to play smart with foolishness, where he has now turned his tongue. And I know tonight we are definitely going to be dealing with that. Coming out of your interview, even this morning, many persons would have now indicated that they are only now aware that what he is now saying is in contravention to what was agreed upon in the House at the 34th sitting. And so tonight we want to delve a bit into that. I want to give you the opportunity to kick it off.
Well, before we go into that, I simply want to, commend the leadership of the People's National Movement Tobago Council, led by Senator Ansel Dennis, for the excellent work they have been doing. The conversations ably guided by Councillor Petal Daniel Benno. I was able to tune in for some parts of those discourse. MP Shampa Kujo, Lewis, MP Ayana Webster Roy. I think they really did an excellent job in terms of just sharing information. It wasn't about politicking, and the approach was just from a Tobago-centric position. And, I think coming out of that, it really set the tone for all of Tobago to get on board with this conversation. And I said this morning, and I genuinely believe it, autonomy for Tobago does not belong to one individual nor one party. And the leaders of Tobago during the last decade or so recognize that. And one must compliment as well the work of Mr. Orville London, who led Tobago through a period of just democratic leadership, where he allowed the voices of all Tobagonians to share in the conversation that was autonomy. And it is because of the leadership of Mr. London acknowledging that this issue isn't a one-man show. It is a Tobago show involving Tobago people going hand in hand. Why we were able to get those bills from the point of simple talking to the point of resolution to the point of having it approved in the Tobago House of Assembly legislature all the way transmitted to the cabinet. And therefore, any deviation from that approach in any sense is repugnant, is repulsive, and all of Tobago should object to it. And therefore, this leads me into our current discourse, where on the 34th sitting, a motion was tabled by the minority, recognizing that notwithstanding all the talk you have heard from the Chief Secretary and the current executive, none of them was brave enough, none of them saw it important enough to take this discussion of autonomy to the place where it rightfully belongs. And that place is the Assembly Legislature, where you have the representatives of Tobago, where we can sit and discuss an approach that can help us in getting the best result for the people of Tobago. And it was not until a responsible minority, PNM influence, took those discussions to the House. And in having the discussions, the House came to 3 fundamental agreements, or which we call resolutions. And those resolutions, I'm not too sure if you have it, Mr. David, but I would like the people of Tobago to be able to be privy, because it was in the height of the carnival, and I know some of our people may have missed it.
I'll ask the director to pull it up for us, please. We have the presented motion, we have the amended motion, and we have the amendments that were made. So would you like us to start with the presented motion?
So I think we can start with the presented motion, because the motion, that is the motion that was tabled by the minority.
Mr. Director, let's get the presented motion. And meanwhile, welcome Minority Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit. She slipped in on us there.
Good night.
Good evening, good night. Moderator, Minority Leader, Senator Lawrence, all of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago.
Good evening, Councillor. Good evening.
So Minority Leader, we have the motion as was presented.
Yes. So let me, for the edification of all listening, let me read from our motion as tabled. And it read, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is constitutionally mandated to govern and manage the affairs of Tobago in accordance with Act 40 of 1996, and whereas Act 40 of 1996 provided enhanced authority to the Tobago House of Assembly, its provisions have not yet delivered the full level of autonomy sought by Tobago. And whereas for over 3 decades, successive efforts to achieve consensus both within and outside Parliament have failed to secure the passage of bills that would grant Tobago the desired autonomy. And whereas the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has announced that the Constitutional Amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill and the Tobago Island Government Bill will soon be debated and put to a vote in Parliament, and whereas these bills represent a historic step forward, proposing substantive improvements to Tobago's autonomy and authority, including the establishment of the Tobago legislature and the entrenchment of core provisions for Tobago self-government. 1. Be it resolved that this House acknowledges that the provisions of these bills will have a far-reaching and positive impact on the powers of the Tobago House of Assembly and the quality of life for all Tobagonians. 2. Be it resolved that this House unequivocally supports the swift and unhindered passage of these bills into law, recognizing that any further delay would perpetuate the long-standing disenfranchisement of the people of Tobago. And 3, Marilyn, you may have to read that third one for me because I think my number 3 is cut off based on the information I have here.
Be it further resolved that this House endorses all necessary actions to ensure the passage of these bills, including an urgent bipartisan meeting between members of the THA and Parliament to facilitate their smooth and timely enactment without further amendment.
All right, so that was the motion that was tabled in the House, and we went with the intention to amend further that motion by simply changing that final resolution which said without further amendment to with further amendment. And when I listened to my counterparts after the Deputy Chief Secretary who responded to the motion, and when I listened to her amendments, the fundamental one of which treated with this final resolution, I found it reasonably similar to what we were going to amend. And therefore, we had absolutely no problem in supporting the amended version of the motion. And that amended version of the motion, you can read for the people of Tobago because it was unanimously accepted and approved.
So it's up. And it reads, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is constitutionally mandated to govern and manage the affairs of Tobago in accordance with Act 40 of 1996. And whereas Act 40 of 1996 provided enhanced authority to the Tobago House of Assembly, its provisions have not yet delivered the full level of autonomy sought by Tobagonians. And whereas for over 5 decades, successive efforts to achieve consensus, both within and outside Parliament, have failed to secure the passage of bills that would grant Tobago the desired autonomy. And whereas the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has announced that the bills to grant Tobago the long denied autonomy will soon be debated and put to a vote in Parliament. And whereas these bills should represent a historic step forward, proposing substantive improvements to Tobago's autonomy and authority, including the establishment of the Tobago legislature and the enhancement of core provisions for Tobago's self-governance. Be it resolved that this House acknowledges that the provisions of these bills will have a far-reaching and positive impact on the powers of the Tobago House of Assembly and the quality of life for all Tobagonians. Be it further resolved that this House...
Marilyn, I just want you to pause. Marilyn, could you just simply pause there? And perhaps we can mull over the first resolution for a bit so Tobagonians understand what we agreed to as a House. Because what this resolution is saying, inter alia, is that all members who supported this motion, because as I said it was unanimously approved, we agreed as the representatives of the people of Tobago at its highest legislative body in Tobago, that the bills, the provision of the bills, does and should have far-reaching and positive impacts on the powers of the Tobago House of Assembly and the quality of life for all Tobagonians. So simply put, we agree that the bills are indeed good bills that will positively impact the Tobago House of Assembly and the lives of all Tobagonians. That is what this first resolution inter alia suggests and in fact agrees upon. So right away, you're seeing where the members of the majority and the members of the minority are in fact saying that the bills currently in front of the Parliament should have far-reaching and positive impact. So it's definitely saying that the bills are good in its intentions. All right?
Second resolution, be it further resolved that this House unequivocally supports the swift and unhindered passage of these bills into law, recognizing that any further delay would perpetuate the long-standing disenfranchisement of the people of Tobago.
So again, so you understand, and I want the people of Tobago to understand what your representatives agree to, because this isn't simply a PNM position or a TPP position or even a PDP position. This is the position of the members of the Tobago House of Assembly agreeing that we as the Assembly support a process that would bring swift resolution to this issue of Tobago's autonomy. So it says unequivocally. So it means without hindrance and in the fastest possible process, ensure that these bills are passed, because we do not want any further delay, which would perpetuate the long-standing disenfranchisement of the people of Tobago. So it means that whatever is to happen has to happen speedily. And we are saying we should not take any position that would circumvent or hinder or prevent or frustrate the process that would ensure that these bills will be passed swiftly. Right? And the final resolution.
And be it further resolved that this House endorses all necessary actions to ensure the passage of these bills, including an urgent bipartisan meeting between members of the THA and Parliament to facilitate their smooth and timely enactment with necessary amendments.
All right, and again, very reasonable. What we basically agreed upon is that the House encourages all necessary action. So it means that, yes, you can take processes that will help to move the process forward towards a resolution, but it must include, it specified a certain action that must take place, which is an urgent bipartisan meeting between members of the Tobago House of Assembly and members of the Parliament to facilitate their smooth and timely enactment. And as I continue, what is envisaged in this meeting is that you will have all the elected representatives along with the councillors of the Tobago House of Assembly sitting in the same space, same room, with all 41 elected members of Parliament, both from the PNM and the opposition UNC. All, I think, is 16 senators of the People's National Movement, government side, the 6 from the opposition UNC, opposition side, and the 9 or so senators appointed by the president, all sitting in the same space and perhaps chaired in the spirit of it with the Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, and the presiding officer. All 3 sitting there chairing this meeting as to ensure the conversations are had that can bring us to a position of consensus, so that when you leave that meeting and you leave with that consensus, the likelihood of those provisions that are going to be tabled positively being put to a vote and getting the support is quite high. And then it is there and then through this united bipartisan effort, Tobago will once and for all get the kind of autonomy that Tobago has long sought. Because in the recital, it accepts that this process has been basically disjointed within and without, because we have never had that kind of bipartisan arrangement. And therefore, this final resolution really envisage a spirit of bipartisanship, a spirit of unity, and a spirit of collaboration. anytime this is dictated by a one-man show and an autocratic process or a unilateral process, then the likelihood of success becomes quite low. And I continue to say, anyone who is willing to put their own interests before that of the people of Tobago is not deserving to lead the people of Tobago. And therefore, this is what was passed. These are the conversations we are having. And it is important that Tobagonians understand what would have been approved. And coming out of this, I was quite surprised, quite shocked, I was in fact dismayed and disappointed as well that the first action of the Chief Secretary, who notably was absent from these very important debates, chose to go to Brazil to an education study tour, while the rest of us spent our entire day, from 10 a.m. upwards to about 6 or to 7 p.m., debating this important motion, coming to a resolution and an agreement. And then the first action of the Chief Secretary would be to disregard, throw aside, ignore this process and announce a process that he unilaterally approved, that does not involve the input of neither the minority or any other political organization or entity, except that he believes once he says it's apolitical, then it becomes so. And I find that behavior repulsive. It is something objectionable, and all of Tobago should be concerned that the Chief Secretary is circumventing the powers of the Tobago House of Assembly. And in fact, his behavior can be seen as in contempt of the very assembly he is now seeking to gain more autonomy for. So it's quite contradictory. It is hypocritical to want more autonomy for Tobago when you are in fact undermining the autonomy that already exists and the democratic processes of the Tobago House of Assembly legislature.
Minority Leader, I want to bring the Minority Councillor into the conversation as well. She of herself having been present in the House and having witnessed the unanimous agreement to the amended motion. Minority Councillor, now we're seeing the Chief Secretary on his own, and one has to wonder if there was any discussion at all between himself and the other members of his administration to come to this particular decision that he has now thrown out in the public domain for Tobagonians. Minority Councillor, your take on this, and I know he's saying that there are 4 areas that are not open for discussion, that all Tobagonians seem to have now agreed on, and I'm trying to figure out when that process took place, that all of Tobago came together to agree on these 4 areas. Minority Councillor, your take.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Moderator. And for me, I was a bit surprised with the stance that the Chief Secretary took this week, because what we are seeing is a disjointed THA administration or THA executive. Because if we recall, coming out of the motion, the debate in the House, the amendment said one thing, but individual members of the executive, when it was their time to debate, in our view, the debate was contrary to what the amendments were. And for each member that would have contributed to debate on the majority side, there was a different view in terms of the meaning of autonomy. So in that first instance, they seem not to be on the same page in relation to the discussion of autonomy, and as an executive, what their considerations are in the autonomy discussion. And again, it was clear that there may have been no debriefing or no discussion even coming into the motion, because if it was the intent of the executive to have this apolitical committee established, that should have been part of the amendments a week prior in the Assembly legislature. But it was not included in the amendment. There was no discussion by any member of the majority as it relates to this committee being set up. And it shows clearly that either they're not communicating or they're not on the same page as it relates to this issue, because the Deputy Chief Secretary was the one who would have spoken right after the minority leader in piloting the motion. And she was the one that would have put forward all the amendments to the motion. So it is quite interesting, and the minority as well as Tobago is taking note of what is happening. In terms of when you look at the bills, we are in a unitary Twin Island Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, and coming out of the consultations, it was clear that Tobagonians want to remain a part of the unitary state, Trinidad and Tobago. And as a result, because we intend to remain part of the state or the country Trinidad and Tobago, yes, we would want certain things, but it's a negotiation between the Parliament and what Tobago wants, because we would often say on the minority side, if every area in Trinidad decides that we are contributing X towards the national pie, and as a result the demand because of our contribution is Y, then when it goes to sharing the pie across Trinidad and Tobago, it will not be shared equitably. So take for instance where oil is currently predominant down in the South Peninsula, you could say Point Fortin, etc. Point Fortin and then that borough, and the people of Point could claim that, you know, they are contributing significantly, and as a result, we should get more of the pie than any other area. So it is a constant negotiation that we are entering into to come up with an agreed position or a consensus that both parties can live with. And the bills that were sent, one of the negotiables that I assume the Chief Secretary, and this came out in the bill, was the whole idea of the definition of Tobago, and the number of miles that we have the administrative rights and lawmaking powers over. When you look at what was sent and what was unanimously approved by the Assembly legislature back then under those bills, it was 12 nautical miles. We are being given 11 nautical miles, which is 1 nautical mile less than what was requested and more than what we currently have. So in that negotiation, we came up better than what we currently have. The request was for 8% in the bills that were sent from Trinidad, and we have a negotiated position of 6.8%, which is greater than the minimum allocation that we are currently working with 4.03% based on the Dispute Resolution Commission. So we are at a constant, we have to constantly negotiate to come up that best suits both parties involved. And in a marriage, there is compromise. And the minority leader, made that point in the debate. If we intend to stay as a unit, if we intend to stay in the marriage of Trinidad and Tobago, then we have to come to that position that best suits both islands. And I think currently what we have in terms of the bills that are before us, we are in a better position based on what is proposed than what we currently have. And for me, I find it very disappointing that coming out of the sitting and the motion that was approved unanimously, we seem to have a contrary view coming from the Chief Secretary.
Minority Councillor, thanks as per usual. Your contribution always brings greater clarity. Senator Hislop, you have been part and parcel of chairing some of the meetings that the People's National Movement has been moving forward with. We see the Chief Secretary, and this those who have been following knows that this is not the first time. He seems to have a history of, just as the autonomy bills are about to come to fruition, either writing or taking some course of action to derail the process. Is this, or does this appear to be another one of those derailing antics or tactics? Is it that the Chief Secretary genuinely wants to be a dictator now and just put aside the process of the Tobago House of Assembly? And if so, what is your call for us here in Tobago in terms of the information we have out there and what we are seeing now unfolding?
Well, and good night again, guys. The only call that I believe the Chief Secretary should be making now is the call based on the resolution and the motion that was passed in the House. And that call that should be made is that official correspondence should now be dispatched from the Executive Council, from the office of the Chief Secretary, to the office of the Prime Minister, to the office of the opposition leader, to the office of the Speaker of the House, and the office of the President of the Senate, for a call to this bipartisan meeting to discuss the matter of the bills that are before the Parliament. That is the only call that should be made by the Chief Secretary at this time, because as the minority leader clearly stated, there was a motion that was debated in the House. The space in Tobago that you debate motions and seek to advance the island is the legislature of the Tobago House of Assembly. And if in this regard it is not a lawmaking body, but it is the highest policy-making body for the island outside of the Executive Council. And so if your entire team voted in favor of a motion that basically calling upon this bipartisan meeting to take place, that's the call that the Chief Secretary should be making, and not any unilateral decision to set up what is he calling it? Setting up a committee,
a political
committee to have discussions. Tobagonians sat 4 years from 2007 to what 2014 was when it was debated. 2016. From 2007 to 2016 when this thing was debated in the House. Tobagonians sat all these years in several consultations throughout the island and in Trinidad to clearly articulate what Tobagonians, what their desire is. And for you to come now and say, well, it matters not what you discussed from 2017 to 2016. It matters not what you sent to Trinidad. It matters not what was discussed on a joint select committee. It matters not what the House debated a couple weeks ago. It matters not what you think. It matters what I think as Chief Secretary and what I want. That is where the Chief Secretary is at right now. He says, I'm discarding every single discussion, every single bipartisan discussion that took place in Tobago, all the voices of the persons who met in Signal Hill, and when the resolution was captured in Signal Hill, all of that. He's saying, I'm disregarding all of that work, all of that talk, all of that conversation. And I'm saying, this is what I want. I want a political, technical team or whatever it is. And I want to ask the question, as learned as Dr. Winfred James is, what is his claim to fame as it relates to this conversation about autonomy? Why is he chosen as the lead of this committee? What is his professional capacity in that regard? And that's the question Tobagonians have to ask. Every single Tobagonian who had an opportunity to speak and who chose to speak spoke from 2007 to 2016 and said, this is what we want. The conversation then moved to a joint select committee where the conversation then took place between what was Tobago's position inside of a national context. Because I want Tobagonians to remember that. We can have a desire as Tobagonians, but one of the things that remain key is that we said we would remain part of the unitary state. If we are remaining part of the unitary state, the decision for autonomy cannot just be a Tobago conversation. It has to be a national conversation. Hence the reason for a joint select committee. And so the parliament set up a joint select committee, and we're going to repeat it every time we have the opportunity. Government members, opposition members, independent members. And they sat and they spoke with experts who advised accordingly. And in the national context, what Tobago brought to the table, and in the national conversation, both things were married. And coming out of all of those conversations, you got these two bills. And I want to say this. Tobagonians have to understand that currently, the Tobago House of Assembly can be dissolved by a simple majority. A government could wake up in the morning and say, well, the THA is no longer needed. But I don't think any national government is going to do that. But that's the reality of the law. And one of the key things that these two, or the constitutional amendment bill is seeking to do, is to enshrine the Tobago House of Assembly in the Constitution. That it takes a 3/4 majority to put it in, and it takes a 3/4 majority to take it out. When something is enshrined in the Constitution, it becomes part of the genome, if you want to put it, the DNA of Trinidad and Tobago. And I think every single resident of Tobago should embrace that we are now seeking to put the Tobago House of Assembly within the DNA of what is Trinidad and Tobago. The very few institutions, Marilyn and Minority Leader and Councillor, the very few institutions in Trinidad and Tobago that's enshrined in the Constitution. And for us to have the THA at that level speaks volumes about what this current administration in the national government is willing to do. And they talk about the THA, they talk about, before my Minority Leader comes in, they talk about going back to the 2013 legislation. But I can't remember that legislation being enshrined in the Constitution. I don't know if anybody could correct me. But I can't remember that being one of the provisions. And we had to be very careful. And I posted something and I was asked about it. A bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. And I even went on to say the bottom of it, crave all lose all, and people want to talk about cliches.
Yeah.
The reality is that is where we stand. If we reject a move forward to something that we are not even sure about, that there was no consultation on. So we are saying we don't want anything better than Act 40 of 1996. We want, but we don't know what we want. And that is where we are, you know. The THA is saying, and I'm not even saying the THA, I want to say this. The majority of those who sat in the house on that day agreed that we want to move, you know.
They all agreed.
The reality now is that one man says we don't want that. So one man is saying to the rest of the members in the Tobago House of Assembly, what you sat and what you voted, not important.
Yeah. Derailing the entire process.
We have to be careful. And I'm saying the only call the Chief Secretary ought to be making now is do your letter. Draft your letter. If you want, we could help you draft it. Draft your letter to the Prime Minister, the opposition leader, and all the necessary personnel in the Parliament construct, in National Parliament, and say we want to have a conversation. And let's sit down like adults and have a conversation with the lawmakers of the national of Trinidad and Tobago. Let's have it because I remember the Prime Minister saying that any conversation about autonomy, and it's the reality of it, you know, any conversation about additional autonomy for Tobago you cannot remove Trinidad from the conversation. There must be input from our brothers and sisters in Trinidad. There must be input from the National Parliament.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that we have to remember. So all the noise that we're making, that this is what we want, how are you getting it? How are we going to get it if we don't sit down like adults and have a conversation?
Minority Leader.
No, excellent, Senator is up. And you know, the reality, this all or nothing approach is inimical to the very essence of the outcome you're trying to achieve.
Correct.
Because if you are taking the approach, if we cannot get all these things, then we want nothing at all. It means you're really putting Tobago back 20 years.
Yeah.
Because once you refuse what is on the table and these bills fail, it means the conversation has to start all over again. And you could imagine having that conversation start all over again. You are now going to have people who's going to come back with their own agenda. So you're going to have federal system thrown into it, who want to be elected chief secretary. And then you come right back to the place, and it means Tobago will be in this situation for another 20 years. And
20?
all I continue to do, or even longer, all I continue to say to the current chief secretary, based on your approach, the death of these bills will be on your hands. And I want to challenge him. I want to ask him if that is a legacy that he will want to carry, not just for himself, but for the generations of Tobagonians to come. Because here it is. For you have an approach that says, so far, the outcomes that have been successful is when we go united. I remember one of the things, and that is where I gain genuine respect for Mr. Hochoy Charles, is when he joined hands with now Dr. London, former chief secretary, and he said, you know what he said to him? He said, I have told Mr. London that we all need to work together and let us get this thing that is the autonomy. And when we get it, then we can fight to see
who will control
it.
That's right.
But the fight is not now. And the fact that the chief secretary is taking on this position, adversarial position, is unfortunate, because it is a position that requires Tobago to speak with one voice. And the voice is, even now, just for instance, even if there might be some genuine valid areas for consideration for amendment, they have not yet articulated a clear pathway, clear position on what these amendments should be. And some of them, when you think about how does this affect the average man on the street? So you're saying, there's a provision, I hear them saying, well, the bill say people of Tobago and the people of Trinidad. And it should say the island of Tobago and the island of Trinidad. How does that genuinely change the outcome of autonomy for the people of Tobago? And, you know, so you would reject everything else, the $4 billion to come, the ability to make your own laws, the Fiscal Review Commission, which allows you an additional avenue to additional funding for mega projects and other off-budget funding. The ability to manage your own public service in the sense of having representatives to treat with Tobago-based issues. The ability to borrow without the Minister of Finance unreasonably saying no. The ability to invest. The ability to now legislate over areas such as town and country and all these things. And all the things that you continue to complain about, you now have it in your own hands to take control of and to treat with. And you are going to deny Tobago that opportunity because you find that they should say the island of Tobago as opposed to the people of Tobago. You find that it should say 200 nautical miles, split Trinidad and Tobago in the middle. When the reality, as I think it's Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit said it, the bills that was approved by the Tobago House of Assembly, the question of 200 nautical miles was discussed, debated, and they agreed to an administrative request for 12 nautical miles. And on the GSC review, it was agreed upon 11. So even if you want to come back and say, well, I'll consider the 12 now, that is a reason. But why are we now trying to change the discussion from 12 or 11 nautical miles? So this whole question of 200 nautical miles. And you continue to change and to move the goalposts every single time. You were just on record as saying the bills were quite good bills that needed minor adjustments. Now you're coming to tell Tobagonians that there are 4 non-negotiables. Who determined those non-negotiables?
Minority Leader?
Yeah.
We have a call on the line. We've opened the lines and we have our first caller.
Sure.
Caller hung up.
The caller hung up. Okay. We have opened the lines. You feel free to call us on 284-6597. We're going to entertain conversations, questions, calls as the program begins to wind down. Minority Leader, you can go ahead.
Yes, no, so it is clear, as Senator Islop said, this is a one-man show that Tobagonians have to be quite concerned that perhaps if we continue to allow the Chief Secretary to go down this road, we are setting up ourselves to a dictator. Because when you have a Chief Secretary that would approach this thing in such a unilateral, autocratic approach, it then tells me that if things are left to continue, where the Chief Secretary determines he determines the 4 non-negotiables, because he had up to this point have not consulted with no one. So how did he determine, where is the empirical data to say that these 4 things Tobagonians have said are non-negotiables?
Minority Leader, we have our next call on the line. Caller, you can go ahead.
You hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I just made a comment on the chat and I'm going to say it aloud.
Caller, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm hearing him.
Like everybody hearing me, man?
I am hearing. You could go ahead.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah. Right, so I'm saying, I just heard Kelvin referring to Choi and a statement that he made about, for the good of Tobago, let me come together and stuff like that. But the same Choi, in 2021, joined with Fari to have the UNC reject this bill. You understand? So I'm saying, Choi Charles does not deserve any credit whatsoever. Choi Charles and A&R Robinson. I've been saying that ever since, and I'm going to continue saying that until I die. Right? Because we have no reason to be in this position that we are today. Right? Because when I was a young man in my teens, when the DSC was running roughshod in Tobago with A&R Robinson, the talk was self-government for Tobago. Right? And that was the mantra until he became the Prime Minister in 86. And he didn't hit the ground running with the kind of majority that they had at the time to give us that self-government that he'd been talking about for years before. Right? we find ourselves in this position today. Just keep going around in circles, and it's frustrating because people looking to make mileage out of it. There's no genuine care for Tobago, right? And we had to call them out and say it as it is because those are the facts. You understand? We have to do what we have to do, educate the people as we did 2 Sundays ago in Color Hall, and get them and convince them that what we are saying is all they need to know. You understand? We don't want to hear nobody else. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah. You see, that's a conversation that we need to continue to have with Tobagonians because I am confident that our brothers and sisters right on this island, that we understand what's taking place.
Yeah.
And we understand what is taking place.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, so,
continuous public education, continuous public education, informing people of what is entailed in the bills and comparing our current position to what is being proposed. And, you know, we continue to see...
Minority Councillor. Caller, you can go ahead.
Good night to the panel.
Good night.
Good night.
How are you all there?
Good.
I'll sit here listening to the program. Wonderful program. But where are we going from here? If we have a chief secretary doesn't understand what really taking place. Who can have the chief secretary sit down and talk to him and let him know this is not an individual thing. This is not a personal thing. This is for Tobagonian.
Yeah.
Look, we the Tobagonian cannot sit down and allow one man to push me back about 20 years, because if this thing doesn't pass, there'll be a problem again. We have to start fresh. And some of us might die. And doesn't see this internal self-government. I remember in 1979, when Mr. Robinson and Mr. Murray leave Tobago to go and care about the Island-wide Council. And I could remember in Blue Cardina, when Mr. Robinson had walked out or left, and Mr. Murray signed for the Tobago Assembly. And I cannot understand today. If we are fighting for internal self-government or what, from since 1980 or 79 or 1976 to now, and we reach so far, the only government, if I put it so far, is this government. And I cannot understand how to be going to sit down and allow one man to determine whether we live or we dead. Good night.
Thank you very much, caller.
Well said. You know, that is the reality that ultimately the people of Tobago will have to have the last say, and I would want to encourage the Tobagonians not to allow this to be another Sandals, where we all sit quietly and support quietly and allow those who are in the minority to be the loudest voices and determine our future. The reality is no one could, I challenge anyone to show me how these bills does not advance Tobago more than the current legislature. I liken this arrangement, I gave 2 scenarios of 2 gentlemen, one deciding not to go forward at all along his journey because he did not have the perfect condition, so he stayed stagnant, while the other continued to make continuous step forward until they got closer and closer to the destination. By the time the next gentleman looked back, the other guy was nowhere to be found because he stayed stagnant. And the question is, would Tobagonians be that gentleman who waited, determined that he has to have the perfect condition to make that leap? Or would we go forward, taking our leap step by step, and getting us closer and closer to that final ultimate autonomy dream.
Yeah.
So this is where we are at in a real sense, because the Chief Secretary's position is everything or nothing. Our position as the PNM is saying that this is a bill that provides us with a far advanced position, takes us leaps and bounds closer to what we believe the perfect situation should be. And therefore, we are encouraging Tobagonians to let us take this leap, which we know would get us very close. Or, if you want, you can take the chain up from the Chief Secretary, reject it. But what is guaranteed is that we remain with this very incomplete, this current Act 40 of 1996, which everybody have admitted that it is currently inadequate to meet the needs of the people.
But the question I have to ask, Minority Leader, is what is this everything that the Chief Secretary is promoting? Because when we say that we don't want what's there, but we want everything, what is the everything? And I think that's the question that Tobagonians really need to ask the Chief Secretary. What are you proposing? What lay it properly on the table. Lay your cards on the table. What are you proposing and lay it in legislative terms?
Because the point is as well, Senator, as you rightfully put, because anybody could come and say they want X, which we did. That was the process.
Correct.
And then those process, once we agreed, these are the things that we want, then it was put into legalese, legislate. And in the GSC process, some of those things were found not to be in conformity with the
international law and the Constitution. That's right.
And with even a unitary status.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is one thing to want something, but does it conform to the spirit and intent
of remaining as part of the unitary state?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why. So you're correct as you ask. What is this everything, and put it in legal terms so that we can determine whether it fits and it makes sense and can conform to what is a united Trinidad and Tobago. We are not seeking federalism.
No.
Because when you listen to them, some of the contents that they are advocating is more in line with a federal kind of system or even an independent system.
Yeah.
And this is the final thing I would say on this. When I listened to some of my colleagues opposite, they were actually advocating for secession.
Secession, yes. Yeah.
That was part of the discussion in the House, plain and simple. And to Tobagonians, we have to be very careful, because the rejection of these bills, the next conversation I shudder to think would come in this space would be a conversation about secession, because when you look at the narrative of this current administration, if you look at their narrative, it is always one pitting Tobago against Trinidad.
Yeah. Minority Leader, we have a call on the line. Caller, you can go ahead.
My brothers and my sister, hear what's happening. Every single thing that Tobago is supposed to be developed with, I will not want it. When they were doing the highway, Colonial Highway problem, Tobago didn't want it. When they started to do the airport, what trouble? Same thing, they don't want the airport. They do in the hospital, same thing. Now today, brothers and sisters of Tobago all over the eyes and listen, because we want to be one place until we get. Let us be careful what's going on here. If this is the last train to San Fernando, this is the last train to Scarborough, this is the last train to Charlottesville, be careful.
You know,
Thank you,
thank you,
Paula.
Ola. You know, Marlon, I listened to, I heard some of what the Chief Secretary said when he made mention of the fact that why Tobago can't get everything that it wants. And the thing about it is that I don't think anybody is saying that Tobago cannot get, quote unquote, this everything. But the challenge I'm having is that you could get more. No. You could get additional autonomy. No. You could get no. You could get no. And my take on it is, why are you refusing what you could get now to something that you're not sure about down the road? Because the truth is, if you make a call on the opposition now and say, we want this, it's there, we have it, this is the opportunity, give us now. The government already agreed that they're going to give us X, and we just need you to support it so we could get it. If we say that, it moves us from point B to point what? C and D. And my take on it is, why are you refusing to move the thing? Why? What to me, I'm a logical thinker. And for me, that's logic, that's common sense. If you have less here and you are being offered more, you are saying, I don't want the more. I can stay with the less because I want all.
Which you can't define what all is.
But I can't say what the all is, and I can't determine when I'm going to get the all. To me, that doesn't make sense.
Is that the real reason, gentlemen? Because we continue to say governance is a continuum. And, we move from one stage to the next. So we moved from the council, we went to the Tobago House of Assembly in 1980, and then we moved to the amended, recognizing that every time we moved, there was need for greater autonomy. And even when, we look at these current bills, there's no reason, as you would have indicated, Senator Islop, why we can't pass these current bills and continue to look for greater autonomy. And greater autonomy, because we are people and because we are evolving, we would continue to seek greater autonomy. So this is not a one and done activity. But I also want to bring into the mix that this administration has proved that they are not able to achieve or to all the promises that they have made, they have not been able to fulfill those promises. And with the advent, so the complaint is that there is insufficient funds. So the central government is starving you for funds. The complaint is that they don't have the teeth to do the things that they need to do. So could it also be that these bills will now provide them, one, with additional resources? It will also provide them with the teeth, the lawmaking powers to do what is necessary for the development of the island. And I want us to consider if, because of their inability to provide and to fulfill on their promises, this is just an excuse to use why we cannot fulfill our promises. Because when you get the additional resources, what will be the excuse now that you can't provide and you can't develop our island as we would like it to be? What will be the excuse now that you have lawmaking powers? What will be the excuse why you can't further progress the island?
Well, thank you very much, Minority Councillor. We wouldn't give them the opportunity to have to explain to Tobago, because the People's National Movement will rescue Tobago from this tyranny.
Well, the conversation, as we wrap, the conversation continues Saturday evening in Belgarden with a town hall meeting where you're invited to come out and ask your questions. Ask your questions to the panel, the two MPs and the political leader. Tobago Council will be there. That conversation continues, and we are creating the avenue for Tobagonians to ask questions, to be educated, to be edified. And then on Sunday, we're seeking to have a caravan where we continue to share the message of Tobago's autonomy. It is possible for us to achieve additional autonomy. No, we just have to grasp it with both hands.
So just quickly, and then I just want to applaud the PNM again for the very open, collaborative approach where it's not just one person just coming and speak here. When you look at the other side, the chief secretary, he has hijacked the process. He's not even allowing his other members. It is he alone. He believes that he's the messiah, and this thing is his to give to Tobagonians. And I don't know where but that is a conversation for another time. But I really want to compliment again the People's National Movement for their approach, one that really is inclusive, and it really seeks to genuinely engage Tobagonians. And I really look forward to the rest of the various programs that is being planned. Senator's PRO, excellent job, and let's continue the conversations. Let's keep Tobagonians informed.
Thank you, and well said, Minority Leader. Folks, as we head out, I want to thank you for logging on, for staying with us. Thank the technical team, the director for giving us the grace period. As we close, we want to take the opportunity to wish an advance happy birthday to Senator Hislop, who celebrates his 18th or 19th birthday, I think it was, tomorrow. He tried to get away from us.
Next month of the year.
Yes, he tried to. Yes. So happy birthday, Senator Hislop, and I will post on Facebook where the line is. He will let us know, so folks can in fact follow. So folks, thanks for staying logged on.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Multiple blessings and best wishes.
Thank you, Marlon Ketchme. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful evening, folks. We'll see you guys next week.